I'm with Yitzhak Santis from NGO Monitor. Now, Yitzhak, what is NGO Monitor?
NGO Monitor is a non-governmental organization itself, and what we do is we monitor non-governmental organizations that are involved in delegitimizing and demonizing Israel and that deny the right of the Jewish people to national self-determination.
Is there a lot of this going on within the NGO groups?
So let me start with some definitions and talk about delegitimization. When I speak of delegitimization, every member of the United Nations is there by dint of international law. That includes Israel, meaning that every nation state that's a member is legitimized in international law. The purpose of this NGO campaign is to delegitimize Israel, to make Israel a pariah state, to force Israel into isolation so that Israel will cease to exist. This is a strategy that was formulated in 2001 at the United Nations Durban Conference on Racism. There was a forum that was called the NGO Forum, and about 1,500 NGOs were there, and they came out with a document that explicitly called for the isolation of Israel, using boycotts, divestment, sanctions, and to isolate Israel in every possible sphere, politically, diplomatically, culturally, militarily, to isolate Israel completely, so that all states in the world will have no more relations with the state of Israel. That is the goal of this NGO network. In 2005, there was a call that came out of Ramallah, made up of about 170 Palestinian non-governmental organizations, calling for what they describe as BDS, Boycott, Divestment, and Sanctions, which is an implementation of the Durban strategy to isolate Israel.
Now, we've seen things like this happen, particularly in London. At Christmas time in London Piccadilly, St. James Church built a replica of Israel's West Bank security barrier. Was this a fair representation?
No, it wasn't. I mean, it wasn't just the replica of the security barrier. It was also everything that surrounded it was a program that lasted, I think, almost 2 weeks. And it was a combination of speakers and panelists and art and music, and the theme running throughout was that the security barrier is wrong, it's illegal, and should be taken down, and that Israel is an apartheid state, et cetera, et cetera. So the whole purpose of that was to delegitimize Israel. It's part of the effort to delegitimize Israel. We saw that the whole program was done in partnership with a number of these anti-Israel NGOs, such as the Amos Trust, and the Kairos Palestine document was part of this, as well as a number of other groups, such as the Israeli Committee Against House Demolitions, War on Want, the Holy Land Trust, and other organizations that are part of the delegitimization strategy.
Was there any mention from the other side, the other point of view?
You know, they brought in a token representative of a pro-Israel British organization for one of these discussions, but the overwhelming tenor of this program was anti-Israel.
Was the whole lot portrayed as a wall? Because really, in some ways, it isn't a wall, all of it, is it?
No, about 95% of the security barrier is fencing. Only in very specific areas is there an actual cement barrier or wall to keep terrorists out. I mean, some prime examples would be like around just outside the Jerusalem neighborhood of Gilo, which is just opposite the valley of Beit Jala. And now there's a security barrier there, a wall. The purpose was, building the wall there, was to prevent snipers from shooting into Gilo, which there were Palestinian snipers that were shooting into private Jewish homes willy-nilly, and so something had to be done, and so we put up a barrier so that the snipers would not be able to shoot again into these homes.
But the barrier has actually helped security, hasn't it? There's been not many suicide bombings since it was actually built.
Yeah, there have not been any since 2005 or 6 or so, when the security barrier was complete. The number of suicide bombings has dropped dramatically. I mean, now there are virtually none, and let's hope it stays that way.
Now there are a lot of atrocities happening all over the Middle East. Why did they just pick on Israel?
Well, it's the like I said, it's this concerted, well-funded NGO network that is pushing the Palestinian nationalist agenda against Israel. They have targeted, for instance, the churches, deliberately trying to capture the churches. The BDS movement, which is based in Ramallah, they know that the BDS message, if it comes only from Palestinians, will be seen as a partisan message and will not get much traction. But if they're able to activate the churches and bring churches into this and create this this false image of Israel using language such as Israel's an apartheid state, in a racist state, using this demonizing language and calling on the churches to participate on behalf of the BDS movement, then the churches are carrying the message of the BDS movement. And suddenly it's not just the Palestinians, it's now the churches which carry a great deal of moral weight in the West. And so there's a deliberate attempt to capture the churches to carry this very anti-Israel message.
Now, it's not politically correct today to be anti-Semitic. So is this another form of anti-Semitism?
Yeah, I mean, there you're getting into a very long discussion. I mean, anti-Semitism has a very specific meaning, and is criticizing Israel or criticizing a policy of the Israeli government an anti-Semitic act? And the answer is no, not in and of it by itself. But the question is, when you criticize Israel and you use anti-Jewish stereotypes, even if you just substitute the word Jew with the word Zionist, then you're crossing into anti-Semitic territory. If, for instance, you criticize the Israeli government for its policies and settlements in the West Bank, that is not anti-Semitic. If, however, you say that that Zionists control the media in the West, that's why we don't hear all the full picture, the whole story, that is an anti-Semitic statement. If you say the Zionists control the banks and the Zionists control this and the Zionists control that, all you're doing is you're just taking Hitler's Mein Kampf, and instead of saying Jew, you're just using the word Zionist. That is an act of anti-Semitism.
Now we're seeing a growing desire to boycott Israel. Is it actually possible to boycott Israel, or would that throw us back into the dark ages, as Israel is ahead of everything in every field?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to really, truly boycott Israel, then you're going to have to shut off your cell phone and throw it away, and you're going to have to shut down your computer, because chances are the Intel chips inside your computer were designed at the Intel factory in Israel. Facebook is, you're going to have to shut that down, because Facebook was founded by a Jew. And if you truly, really want to boycott Israel, there are probably all sorts of health items you're going to have to give up. Probably the stent, if you have a stent in your heart that saved your life, you're going to have it removed, because stents were actually, I believe, they were developed in Israel originally, and so forth. I mean, Israel is at the forefront of high tech. Israel is at the forefront of innovation. And if you truly want to boycott Israel, then you're going to have to go back to the 19th century, just about.
And do you think Israel has been held to another standard?
There's no question that there's a double standard being used against Israel. At the United Nations, for instance, at the United Nations Human Rights Council, Israel is the only country out of 192 or so nation states. Israel is the only country at the UN Human Rights Council that has a permanent item on the agenda, where Israel is, in Israel's human rights record, is visited every single session. Okay, Israel is the only country that is excluded from sitting on the Human Rights Council, although countries like Libya or Iran or Russia, with its wonderful human rights record, all sit on the Human Rights Council. Saudi Arabia is on the Human Rights Council, for goodness sake, and so there's a huge double standard there. Israel, more than any other country, is criticized and attacked and condemned by the United Nations General Assembly, and it's all politics. The General Assembly is not a nonpartisan body. It is a political body. And the United Nations General Assembly runs by politics. And you have 57 countries which are members of the Organization of Islamic Countries, 22 Arab states, and plus any number of so-called non-aligned countries. And they all vote as a bloc regularly against Israel, regardless of the human rights records of some of these countries, which are absolutely horrendous. And in non-democratic countries, Iran sits on the Human Rights Council, I believe, in Iran, which is a non-democratic country that has one of the highest execution rates in the world, which executes gay and lesbian people just for their lifestyle, which persecutes Baha'is and persecutes non-Muslim minorities. Is never up for censure at the United Nations Human Rights Council. So, is there a double standard against Israel? Absolutely.
And do you feel that some of these groups have hijacked words such as racist and apartheid because it plants a seed in your mind, doesn't it?
Well, it's all part of the delegitimization effort. How best to delegitimize Israel, then to apply to it the words apartheid, racist, Israel's Nazi-like, the Zionism is just like Nazism. All of this you hear all the time by the anti-Israel crowd. And the whole purpose is to delegitimize Israel. If you can create the image of the state of Israel as being equivalent to Nazi Germany or apartheid-era South Africa, if you can succeed in doing that, then you've succeeded in putting Israel outside of the realm of a legitimate state for existence. And that is the goal. Those who fall for it are either ignorant or willfully malevolent in their beliefs toward Israel or toward Jews, or all of the above. And I think that when you look at Israel, when you come here and you live here, democratic, multicultural society, whose citizens enjoy more individual rights than any other country in the Middle East, okay, where the Arab citizens of Israel enjoy more civil rights by right than any other Arab population anywhere in the Arab world. It is really difficult to square that circle, okay, that Israel somehow this totalitarian Nazi-like state. It's absurd.
Now, Christian groups like the Holy Land Trust and Amos Trust, they're non-violent, but they're very one-sided. So do you think that promotes anger and hatred?
You know, when I meet with Christians, on the topic of Israel and the Palestinians, and I ask, what is it that you really hope to achieve? And the answer is usually we want peace. We want the Israelis and Palestinians to stop the fighting, to end the conflict, stop the suffering. And I completely agree with that. Nobody wants peace more than I do, okay, between us and the Palestinians. I have to say that what happens, though, when Christian groups, when churches or Christian aid societies start to take up the delegitimization campaign, support boycott, divestment, and sanctions, support the isolation of Israel, they are no longer being peacemakers. What they have done is that they've joined the conflict. They've actually become partisans in the conflict and taken sides. If a true peacemaker does not take sides, a true peacemaker speaks truth to both sides. A true peacemaker tries to bring both sides together. The boycott, divestment, sanctions movement does not want to bring both sides together. Boycott, divestment, and sanctions, BDS, seeks to undermine Israel's existence and to end Israel's right to exist. Okay? And if churches start taking that position, that the Jewish state of Israel has no right to exist, then they become partisans in the conflict. And even worse, after 60 years of a flowering Jewish-Christian relationship after the Holocaust, Okay. For churches to start advocating against Israel's right to exist puts them back to the pre-1945 situation where the churches regularly vilified Jews. Because what they're saying is that the Jewish people, of all the peoples in the world, the Jewish people don't have a right to national and sovereign equality.
Basically, at the end of the day, they're not believing the Bible, because the Bible says the promises were for Abraham and they were eternal promises. So they're trying to delegitimize it by having replacement theology, aren't they?
Yeah, replacement theology. Some of the arguments that are used by groups like Sabeel, the Palestinian Christian Liberation Theology Center, is indeed replacement theology. The argument, and here I'm getting into theology, so I'm on very shaky grounds here. I'm not a theologian, but the argument that Jesus fulfilled all the promises of the Old Testament, of the Jewish Bible, and that includes the promise of land, and therefore modern Jews don't have a right historically or religiously to any part of the land of Israel, the Holy Land. That is something which theologically creates more conflict, but it also what they're doing is that they're using theology and putting it to the service of the Palestinian nationalist cause. Okay, so on the one hand, the claim is that Christianity is a universal religion, and then using that universal theology for a particularistic national cause is inherently contradictory.
And what's your prayer for Israel as she's been attacked in this way?
My prayer is for shalom. My prayer is for peace, and for all good people of conscience to help Israel and the Palestinians come to peace and find a way to end this conflict once and for all. Israelis and Palestinians have suffered enough, and it's time for the conflict to come to an end.
So you have a website address for people who'd like to know more?
Yeah, our main website is www.ngo-monitor.org.
Okay, Yitzhak, thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul.